incredible crashes. It's one thing to survive, but to go back out and compete, well, that was a decision Bill was not going to rush.
And I had a chance to maybe lay in the hospital a while and give some additional second thoughts that we all have as we move through life to the kind of career that I happen to have, whether I really and truly belonged in this career or not.
In reality, Bill knew what he was going to do, and it wasn't easy. It took 2 long years before he won another race, but once he'd been given that checkered flag, his racing took off. Through the 60s, he picked up 2 more Gold Cups and 3 national driving championships. He drove several different boats and had become the leading driver in hydroplane racing. There were some ups and downs, but something was missing, and Bill knew it. Then, in 1970, friends got together.
By 1970, I joined Lee Shaneth in Detroit and the Gale racing team. And I always felt, until I finally ended up where I am today, that was exactly where I belonged all the time.
Now, I raced against Bill as a driver quite a few times for many years, and I always respected him. And I can tell you stories about some of the races we had to get that were really interesting. But when I needed a new driver, I got a hold of Bill and talked to him, and I was really thrilled to have him on my team.
I just enjoyed driving for Lee because Lee was a pro. He never ever questioned my ability. He had the most tremendous confidence in it. And when you're in an atmosphere like that, with the kind of sponsorship that we had, hey, you've got to be some kind of successful, and I think we were exactly that. In 1972, we just had a tremendously successful year. We always felt confident that we were going to be in contention, in top competition, but I don't think anybody thought that we'd be as successful as we happened to be that year. We won 6 out of 7 events, as I remember it. And at the end of there was any team in this country that was flying higher than we were. However, at the end of that time, Lee Shaneth came to me.
So I told Bill, I said, Bill, we're going to put a new Allison turbocharged engine in your boat.
If you did this with any driver in the history of racing, you offered him 20% more horsepower, hey, you're going to get his attention because he knows he can get that sled to the bank with 20 more horsepower, set a lot of world's records, and win an awful lot of races.
Unfortunately, for Bill's sake and mine, it did not work too well. And all of a sudden, you know, I don't care how hard the guys in the pits work, the driver gets all the credit for winning, and he also gets all the blame losing. And all of a sudden, people were starting to talk, oh, Bill's getting over the hill, he's up in age, and this and that. He had his good years in 71 and 2. He's just taking it easy now. Well, that was not the truth by far. Bill and I, for hours and hours, and talk over the situation.
On the other hand, at the same time, along about 1974, I remember that Ted Jones at the time had suggested that a driver's lifespan, I don't remember how he was able to articulate the comment, but it was a reference to, hey, 35 years of age is pretty old for an unlimited hydroplane driver. And there was a lot of pressure I felt from media people who were concerned about my age. Maybe some were concerned about my welfare.
And then finally in 75, we decided to get out of boat racing. I sat again with Bill and talked and explained it to him. And I said I did anything I could to help him anytime I ever could.
And so at the age of 46, and after 3 years of not winning a single race, the press and many of his peers said it was over. Too old, lost his edge. His friends said, enough. After all, he had won the Gold Cup 5 times. However, in spite of his friends and critics, he didn't quit. He decided to continue and went on to take what to him seemed the next logical step. Bill Muncey bought his own boat.
So in 1970, I became not only the driver, but the owner of the most successful racing team in history. Bowdoin was included in this arrangement that had won the national championship 3 years in a row, and it was called the Pan Pack at the time, and it became the new Atlas Van Lines. But more than that, more critical to that, a driver has to have a confidant. You just have to be able to lean on someone when things get a little difficult at times, a little hairy, and he's Jim Lucero. And I went into the 76 season, what was I? Let me see. I was about 47 years old, and my goodness, we won about 5 out of 9 races. We ended up the national champion that year. And at the conclusion of that year, I couldn't have felt more confident.
Not content with his 4th national championship, Bill considered taking another radical step. His crew chief, Jim Lucero, had designed and built a new hydroplane constructed of space-age material. It was considerably lighter than its competitors, and the driver sat in front of the engine, a position that Bill knew all too well could be dangerous. At the age of 48, Bill went into the 1987 season with a new hydroplane and a lot of faith in Jim Lucero. He came out of it with an unprecedented 6th Gold Cup.
We produced what we felt was the finest or purest airfoil ever attached to the water in unlimited competition, and we were able to win 6 out of 9 races in our first year. And I got to tell you, I felt awfully strong about it because I was able to come into the 1978 season, 49 years old, probably in better physical shape and mental shape than I've ever been in my career, driving one of the finest unlimited hydroplanes in the history of unlimited hydroplane racing.
And when it came time for the first race of the season at the champion Spark Plug Regatta in Miami, there was no doubt that Bill was right. He won his first 2 heats easily. New speed at 125 miles per hour. Then suddenly an old end, and the name disaster appeared. While fuel lines were being checked, gas fumes had accumulated in the hull. Unaware of the danger, a crew member had turned on the electrical system.
There was just a small spark, and the end result was just a tremendous explosion. But amazingly, there wasn't any serious injury. Just spark. I'll stay here and relax. It's not that big a deal. Don't get upset. If we don't win this one next, the damage was so severe that I know that I can't think of anybody. They would have passed it in. There were 4 or 5 other teams that jumped on to help us because they didn't want to see us lose on the trip.
And work they did. In less than 30 minutes, they had replaced the broken parts and literally taped the boat together. With the help of Jim Lucero finished the repairs only seconds before their time was up. And the boat was placed in the water. Jim checked the repairs one more time. The first crucial test. Would the engine start? Now up to Bill to keep the boat together, if he could. 5 laps at over 150 miles per hour. About the fuel explosion, and everyone watched as he raced around the course. Everything held together.
Bill, on behalf of the city of Miami, I congratulate you.
Bill won the champion Spark Plug Regatta. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Since the Miami race, Bill has gone on to win his 7th Gold Cup, setting new records in almost every race. In the 75 years of unlimited racing, nobody has achieved the record that Bill Muncey has. It's remarkable when you consider that friends and critics alike a few short years ago said his career was over. Next time, once again, we're going to examine the life of one of the people who have found the courage and determination to overcome defeat. Now, it might be someone famous or perhaps some courageous person you've never heard of. But I promise you this, their stories are fascinating and they're real. So join us for another triumph of the human spirit. I'm back.